Today I want to talk about marriage, and specifically I want to talk about this issue called bigamy. I know that a lot of us um, misunderstand the difference between polygamy and bigamy, and it's important that we know exactly what it is that is the difference between the two. Bigamy is not a custom, it's a crime. There is no other way to describe it other than to say that it's a crime. It's a crime that a person commits when he marries somebody else, even though he's not available for marriage yet. Now, polygamy is the custom of a people which allows the man to marry more than one wife, just as polyandry is the custom that allows the woman to marry more than one husband. We have a lot of polygamy in West Africa and in and North Africa. There's a lot of polygamy there. It's understood there. People practice polygamy, and the truth of the matter is that in Nigeria, where I live, polygamy is legal. A lot of people think that a man who takes two wives has committed an offense or a sin against his marriage. It depends on the kind of marriage he has. When you have a cultural marriage, or a marriage according to native law and custom, the man can marry as many wives as he chooses, and he will not have broken any law. Thank you for joining. And he will not have broken any law. But when he marries and he's not available to marry another wife, then he has committed bigamy. Now, let's not get confused with this. I'm talking about where the man does not have capacity to marry somebody else, or indeed the woman does not have capacity to marry somebody else, and they go ahead to marry somebody else. They have committed bigamy. Let me simplify it. Let's say Grace marries Richard and their marriage breaks down. They are not divorced. They haven't gone to any court, whether it's customary court or high court. They haven't gone to get any decree of divorce. And then, because she finds that the cost of having a divorce is very high, she decides to marry Robert under native law and custom. She has committed bigamy. The same thing with the man who does the same thing. He has committed bigamy. But it's even more serious when a couple have married under native law and custom. They are separated, and then because they think it's native law and custom and it doesn't really matter, they go ahead and they remarry, or they marry under the law. It is bigamy. When a person marries another person, if you do not divorce and separate from that person before marrying anybody else, whether you are a man or a woman, it is bigamy. So let's try and understand these two phrases, polygamy and bigamy. Bigamy is a crime. It's the marriage you enter into when you don't have the right or the capacity to enter into such a marriage. Polygamy is the one that gives you a right to marry, gives the man a right to marry more than one wife. So if, for instance, the man decides that he wants to have a life of polygamy, he can never marry under the statute. He has to marry every wife under customary law. The moment he marries one person under statutory law, if the first wife is the one he marries under statutory law, he cannot marry anybody else without divorcing the first wife. If he marries 5 women under customary law, and customary law alone, he is a polygamist, he's not a bigamist. And so he can continue to marry 100 like that. However, if he then decides to marry one, maybe the 7th one, or the 2nd one, or the 10th one, or the 100th one under the statute, he has committed bigamy. I know that a lot of people will say that nobody reports bigamy, and that in Lagos State here where I live in Nigeria, that bigamy is no longer a crime. That is true. Under our criminal law in Lagos State, bigamy is not a crime. But the point is, if that same man or that same woman go to live outside of Lagos, they have committed a crime, because bigamy is a federal crime. It is under the Marriage Act. It is a crime, and it is punishable by going to prison. Now, many people do not report their spouses who have committed bigamy, sometimes because they are complicit in this marriage, so they cannot even go and report it. And other times because they just feel like, you know what, I don't really want the woman any longer, or I don't want the man any longer, so it doesn't really matter that they've married somebody else. But it does matter. It does matter for the children that you have brought into the world together. It does matter for many other reasons, even for reason of official reasons as well. Because really, if you are married to somebody under customary law, and you go and marry somebody else under statutory law before dissolving the customary law marriage, then you have not really married that person, that second person. You have not married that second person at all. All you have done, or all you have achieved, is that that person is living with you your life without any marriage, without anything. When it comes to issues of inheritance, that person, once challenged, you will successfully challenge the person that is not your widow or is not your widower. So it's important for us to get these issues of bigamy and polygamy corrected. A man who is married under statute to one wife and then who marries a second one is not a polygamist, he's a bigamist. And such people need to go to prison. A woman who has left her husband, has not divorced properly, and then goes and just decides that, you know what, I want to marry a second husband. I can't afford the lawyer's fees, or I don't really care, or I can't wait for the time for the divorce. And she goes ahead and they have a traditional marriage, has committed bigamy. Bigamy is not a man's crime alone. It's a crime of a man, it's a crime of a woman. And it's important at all times to ensure that when we are getting married, we have clarity about it. Now, in closing, let me just say that if your spouse, or you are about to marry, or you got married to somebody who had a traditional marriage before, or who commenced a traditional marriage before, regardless of whether they say to you that we never really finished the ceremony, they are probably married. The reason is they were probably married. The reason is that once dowry passes, there is a marriage. So if dowry has passed according to the custom of that area, there is a marriage. And so such a person cannot say, oh, we broke up, even though he had come to ask for my hand from my family. Once the dowry has passed, they need to go to a customary court and have the marriage annulled, dissolved. Without that, that person is in bigamy. I hope that is understandable. I don't know if there's anybody who has any questions. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Kenny Omishori, for joining.